Hello there, you Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and there is a question doing the rounds at the minute, and that is Lauren James the best women's footballer in the world? And yes, she is. Yeah, that's the intro. Alright, so hopefully you will have seen this week England produced the greatest Chinese battering since I first ordered chicken balls, but it was more interesting not for the scoreline, but for the system. Sarina Wiegman did, of course, famously not make a single change to her starting 11 during the Euros. It was always this 4-2-3-1, and despite the injuries she had, she just went like for like with those replacements, so we started the World Cup like this, but then some middling, alright-ish performances coupled with an injury to Keira Walsh meant that she was going to have to change things, and boy oh boy did she. She went and moved from a back four to a back three, which of course makes sense when you've got three excellent centre backs, a centre forward who can also play at left back, and one of the best attacking right backs in the world, so that's quite good. Katie Zelem went into the middle to replace Walsh. Stanway stayed where she was, and interestingly, instead of either Russo or Daly up front, she actually went with Russo and Hemp as a two. Now, while you look at it here and just think two centre forwards, wasn't really like that. Russo was kind of pretty much central, then Hemp either played on the left or the right. She had all this horizontal freedom across the pitch to go find whatever space she wanted. What was really interesting about that, what was interesting about the whole system, was the way it was set up to get the best out of Lauren James. And why is that interesting, I hear you ask? Well, because she got 3 assists and 2 goals, which is absolutely insane. So that means that as far as the England national team are concerned, and by extension probably the entire rest of women's football, we are now in, welcome to it, the Lauren James era. Like, the idea behind this was with Hemp sort of free to go onto whichever channel she wanted to, that would always leave an inverse space for Lauren James to get into. She would drop back and play with the 2 centre midfielders because she's so good on the ball. That allows you to get a nice little overload there, but also she would float into the pocket that then opened as a result of the defenders going to worry about Hemp. And of course, Russo's movement's so good, she can tie defenders up by pushing them forward, by pulling them back. So she was finding any pocket of space she could, meaning she was always the creative outlet for whoever was doing the build-up. And just frankly, once you set up a team of England's quality to enable a player the standard of Lauren James to just have so much time and space and freedom and just ability to do all the things she's good at, that's it. It's game over. Like, genuinely, Leah Williamson, England's captain, has referred to Lauren James as basically a cheat code in women's football. And that's exactly how it looked against China. Like, Lauren James was playing this game on a controller that had more buttons on it. And while, yes, the obvious caveat to this is that it was only China, nobody was really expecting that to be a massive test for England, they pretty much went toe-to-toe with Denmark. They only lost that game 1-0. They got the same score against Haiti as England did. The gulf in class was not as big as Lauren James made it look. But what's so important about all that? Loads of players have these breakout games where they totally run the show and they look like the next big thing. What makes Lauren James so different? I'll put it to you this way. Sometimes a player comes along and they do things you've never seen before and you just know that's amazing and it's going to change football, right? We've seen that happen, okay? But sometimes a player comes along and they don't do anything you've never seen before. They do all the things that everybody else is doing. It's just that they're doing them on a level you did not previously realize was possible. And that is what really changes football. Lauren James is not the most skillful player we've ever seen in the women's game. She's not the strongest player we've ever seen in the women's game. She's not the quickest player we've ever seen in the women's game. She's not even the most technical player we've seen in the women's game. She's not the best passer. She's not the best finisher. She's not doing any one individual thing that we don't already see in the WSL and in the World Cup. But what she does is all of those things, and she does them at the highest possible level and in such a way that it just looks incredibly easy for her. Like, if you watched her at all in the WSL last season, if you got it in a tight area, she would just very comfortably dribble her way out of it. If she got any sort of open field in front of her, it was virtually impossible for anyone to keep up with her. If she was ever able to isolate defenders, she had the ability to just dribble around them as if they weren't even there. And when instead you forced it into more congested areas, she was good enough again that she could just weave her way through 2, 3, often 4 players. There wasn't even any foot you could reliably force her onto because she could pass and finish with both. And to top it all off, on the even rarer occasion you were able to get into a physical duel with her, there were virtually no players in the league that had the strength to knock her off the ball. For the current standard of women's professional football, there is almost no weakness in her game, and that is what this is all about. Because you see, and I'm going to use the men's game as an example here, every now and then a player comes along and they make you realise that so many things about the game, from the coaching to the tactics to everything, have to evolve and they have to change. Like, if she goes on to have the World Cup it looks like she's going to have, you are not going to be able to move for stories about how, oh, when she was growing up, she trained with the boys and she got the same kind of coaching as her brother did. And that's not a coincidence. That's part of her story. That's why she's as good as she is. Again, England's captain, Leah Williamson, has said that part of the reason we're seeing so many ACL injuries in the women's game now is because they're being given the sort of schedule and the sort of workload that we expect of the men's game, despite the fact that when they were developing, when they were coming through academies, they weren't getting anywhere near the sort of physical training required to handle that. And that's because in men's football, you can get picked up by an academy from the age of 5 or 6, and then you're in the system and you're constantly being given all this technical practice, yes, but they're also building your body to be able to handle that. Women's football, as Williamson has said, is totally different. You're sort of training part-time, you get 2 or 3 sessions a week, and then bang, you're a professional and you're expected to just sort of adapt. And so the reason why James looks like she's on a different level is because she's 21. She's about one generation removed from the current stars of women's football, so she's benefited from better quality and better access to coaching. And so the reason, see, I did get there in the end, the reason why this is so important for the women's game as a whole is it just goes to show you can have players the standard of Lauren James. She hasn't got to be an anomaly or look way better than everybody else. You can just have players that standard if you invest in the academy setup, if you invest in the coaching. And you've got all these big clubs now, your Liverpools, your Man United, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, just in this country, who are taking the women's side of their club so seriously. Well, there you go. Would you like 11 Lauren Jameses? Because you can afford them. And that is not to take anything away from James herself, I hasten to add. She has got where she is today because she has worked incredibly hard to get there. But I think she would probably be the first to tell you that she has worked that hard because she was allowed to work that hard. There are not really any other players in the world right now like Lauren James, but there very well might be if the kind of training that she's had access to was the norm and not the exception. But yes, anyway, long story short, it's coming home. So anyway, that's your lot. Comments in the box below. Please try and not be weird. That would be very nice for me. Grab me on Twitter at Adam Cleary, CLERY. 442 out now, season preview edition. It's the best one. Go and buy it. But until next time, I've been Adam Cleary. This is 442. See you soon. Bye. Bye.